What? The massive flood in Sumatra is caused by President Prabowo Subianto himself? Yes, that's what the data says. That's what the maps show. That's what the land reveals when you follow the water upstream. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a story of land, power, and silence, and it starts with rain. December 2025. Rain falls for days in Aceh, West Sumatra, and North Sumatra. Rivers swell, hills collapse, entire villages vanish overnight. In Pd Jaya, a mother wakes up to water at her ankles. By the time she grabs her child, the current has taken her husband. In Pasaman Barat, a school collapses with 32 children inside. In Aceh Utara, a bridge gives way under a wave of logs and mud. The official number's 914 dead, 2,600 injured, 1.9 million displaced. Because this wasn't just a natural disaster, this was a failure of land, of forests, of policy, and of leadership. Let's go upstream, to the hills and to the forests that used to be there. This is PT Tusum Hutani Lestari, a forestry company in Aceh. It holds 97,000 hectares of land. Thousands of hectares were illegally converted into palm oil plantations, and it's linked to President Prabowo Subianto. Prabowo is connected to a web of companies, a land empire stretching across Sumatra and Kalimantan. PT Tanjung Redeb Hutani, 187,000 hectares in East Kalimantan. Forestry license, deforestation hotspot, PT Belantara Pusaka, 14,000 hectares, same pattern. PT Nusantara Energy, oil and gas exploration, forests turned into fuel. PT Nusantara Barrow Coal, PT Nusantara, Kaltam Coal, coal mines, rivers polluted, villages displaced. PT Kertas Nusantara, a pulp and paper giant with a long history of forest clearing, once owned by Bob Hassan, now linked to Prabowo. Together, these companies control over 340,000 hectares of land. That's bigger than the island of Bali. And they all lead back to one man. This isn't just about ownership, it's about control. About how one man's business interests intersect with the collapse of ecosystems. Forests are not just trees, they are natural dams. They absorb rain, hold soil, slow down water. Palm oil plantations, they do none of that. Shallow roots, no canopy, no protection. So when the rain comes, the water rushes down, the rivers overflow, the hills collapse, and people die. This isn't theory, it's hydrology, and it's been ignored. But the permits kept coming because the land was already sold, because the forest was already gone, because the silence was already paid for. But silence doesn't just happen. It's built, it's bought, it's enforced, and sometimes it wears a uniform. Prabowo Subianto, former general, now president, and also a land tycoon. He once said, "Palm oil is a gift from God." He said this while people were still buried in the mud, owning land. In 2024, he admitted it. In 2025, he visited the flood zone. But he never mentioned his companies. He wore a white shirt. He shook hands. He promised aid. He said, "We will rebuild." But he never said, "I profited from this land. I signed the permits. I knew this would happen." Because he didn't have to. Because the system protects its own. Let's talk about that system. Indonesia's forests are governed by a maze of permits. HTI, Industrial Plantation Forests. HPH, Natural Forest Concessions. HGU, Land Use Rights. IUP, Mining Business Licenses. Each one is a layer. Each one is a loophole. Each one is a door that opens if you know who to pay. In theory, these permits are regulated. In practice, they overlap. They contradict, they disappear. In East Kalimantan, one village sits on land claimed by 3 companies: a palm oil firm, a coal mine, and a timber concession. All with valid papers, all with different maps. In Aceh, the forest that collapsed was supposed to be protected, but the protection was only on paper. On the ground, it was gone. And when activists speak up, they're silenced, intimidated, sometimes worse. In 2022, Walhi Aceh reported threats from unknown men after exposing illegal land clearing. In 2023, a journalist investigating PT Kertas Nusantara was followed for weeks. In 2024, a local official who refused to sign a permit was reassigned to a remote post. This is not just corruption, it's a system, a machine. And it runs on fear, but fear doesn't stop the rain. And when the rain comes, it doesn't care who signed the permit. It doesn't care who owns the land. It just flows downhill, through villages, into homes, into graves. Let's go back to the people. In Aceh, a mother stands in front of what used to be her house. Now it's mud. She says, "We didn't know the forest was gone. We just saw the water." In West Sumatra, a teacher holds a torn book, the only one left in the school. He says, "We teach under a tarp now. The children are afraid of rain." In North Sumatra, a farmer shows his field, or what's left of it. He says, "The river moved, my land is gone, but the bank still wants payment." These are not isolated stories. They are echoes from every corner of the island, from every place where the forest used to be. And yet, the companies remain. The permits remain. The president remains. There has been no investigation, no accountability, no apology. The media moved on. The government moved on. But the people, they're still drowning. And the land, it's still being cleared. In January 2026, just weeks after the flood, a new permit was issued in East Kalimantan, 11,000 hectares, to a company linked to the same network, the same empire. Because the flood wasn't a warning, it was a cost of doing business, and business is good. Let's talk about permits, because in Indonesia, disaster doesn't begin with a storm. It begins with a stamp, a red stamp, a signature, a handshake behind closed doors. You've heard the acronyms HTI, HGU, HPH, AMDAL. But what do they really mean? Let's break it down. Hutan tenement industry, industrial plantation forests, supposed to be for fast-growing timber like acacia or eucalyptus. But in reality, they're often used to clear native forests and replace them with monoculture. Sometimes even palm oil, illegally. HPH, Hak Pengusahan Hutan, logging concessions. Companies are allowed to cut natural forest selectively. But who checks? Who enforces? Who stops them from clear-cutting everything? HGU, Hak Guna Usaha, land use rights, mostly for agriculture, palm oil, rubber. Once granted, it's valid for 35 years, renewable, transferable, and often irreversible. AMDAL, Analysis Mengenai Dampak Lingkungan, Environmental Impact Assessment. Sounds good, right? But here's the trick. Companies hire their own consultants, they write their own reports, and the government signs off. No independent review, no public oversight, no accountability. And here's where it gets dangerous. These permits overlap. One piece of land can have an HTI permit, an HGU permit, and a mining license all at once. In theory, that's illegal. In practice, it's Tuesday. In East Kalimantan, a village sits on land claimed by 3 companies. One wants to log, one wants to mine, one wants to plant palm oil. The villagers, they just want to live. But the map says otherwise. Because in Indonesia, the map is not made by the people, it's made by the powerful. So how does this happen? It starts with a proposal. A company applies for a permit. They submit an AMDAL. They promise jobs, they promise growth. Then they wait. But not really, because behind the scenes, they pay, they lobby, they call someone who knows someone, and the permit is granted. Sometimes by the Ministry of Environment, sometimes by the Ministry of Forestry, sometimes by the local governor, sometimes by all 3 for the same land. This is not a glitch, it's a feature. The confusion is intentional. The overlap is profitable. The chaos is the point. Because when no one knows who's in charge, no one can be blamed. And when disaster strikes, they blame the rain, the loopholes. Let's go deeper. Some companies get permits for rehabilitation. They say they'll reforest degraded land, but instead, they clear what's left. Then they plant palm oil. Then they sell. Others get trial permits, temporary licenses, just to study the land. But the bulldozers arrive on day 1. And then there's the plasma scheme. where companies promise to give 20% of land back to local farmers. But in reality, they give them debt and take the harvest. It's legal, it's documented, it's devastating. The president's fingerprints. And where is Prabowo in all this? Everywhere. His companies hold HTI permits, HGU permits, mining licenses, some directly, some through proxies, some through shell companies. In 2025, after the flood, no permits were revoked, no licenses suspended, no audits launched, because the man who should investigate would be investigating himself. And what's the cost of this system? Let's count. 900 plus dead, 1.9 million displaced, 12,000 hectares of farmland destroyed, 3,400 schools damaged, 1.2 trillion rupiah in losses. But that's just the surface. What about the trauma? The children who flinch at thunder, the farmers who lost their land, the rivers that turned brown and never cleared? What about the future? Because the permits are still active, the forests are still falling, the rain is still coming, and the system still intact. Before he was president, he was a general. Before he wore a white shirt, he wore a uniform. And before he promised to protect the people, he disappeared them. Let's rewind. Jakarta, 1998. The regime is collapsing. Suharto is falling. The streets are burning. Students are marching. Activists are organizing. And people are disappearing, one by one, at night, without a trace. Wiji Tukul, Herman Hendrawan, Yani Afri, Benedictus Slamet, and many more. Some came back. Most didn't. Who took them? A special unit, Kopassus, Tim Mawar, and who commanded them? Lieutenant General Prabowo Subianto. He was the son-in-law of Suharto. He was the commander of the army's most elite force, and he was at war with democracy. In May 1998, after the riots, after the blood, after the smoke, Prabowo was dismissed. Not retired, not promoted, dismissed. The military said he acted beyond his authority. He violated orders. He endangered the chain of command. And then he vanished, not into prison, not into trial, but into exile. Where? Jordan. He lived there for years, protected by royal connections, shielded from justice, waiting, and when the dust settled, he came back, not as a fugitive, but as a businessman, a tycoon, a political player. He bought land, he built companies, he funded campaigns, and in 2004, he ran for president and lost, and ran again, and lost, and again, and again, until 2024, when he finally won. But the past doesn't disappear, it just gets buried. In 2005, Komnas HaM declared the 1998 abductions a gross human rights violation. In 2006, the DPR recommended a tribunal. In 2009, the victims' families demanded justice. But nothing happened. Why? Because the man they accused was rising, and no one wanted to stop him. Not the courts, not the generals, not the parties, not the media. Because in Indonesia, power cleans the record, and silence buys peace. So what does this have to do with the flood? Everything. Because the man who once disappeared activists now disappears forests. Because the man who once ignored orders now signs permits. Because the man who once fled the country now rules it. And the pattern is the same. Silence, control, profit, disaster. This isn't just about Prabowo. It's about every official who signed the permits, every company that cleared the land, every bureaucrat who looked away, every media outlet that stayed quiet, every one of us who let it happen. Because the next flood is already coming. The next hillside is already bare. The next river is already choked with mud. The next village is already marked on a map, not as a community, but as a concession. And when it happens again, they'll say, it was the rain. It was fate. It was God. But we know better. We've seen the maps. We've followed the money. We've heard the names. We know who profits. We know who signs. We know who owns the land. So the question is, what will we do? Will we scroll past the next flood? Will we share the video, then forget? Will we let them rewrite the story again? Or will we speak? Will we name names? Will we demand accountability? Will we protect what's left? Because this isn't just about forests, it's about justice, it's about memory, it's about survival. And if we stay silent, we're not just witnesses, we're accomplices.